We had a scan at around 19 weeks and realised that the fluid was low. But we thought, I'm sure I'm overreacting and everything will be fine. And you did a scan and you had to tell me that there was no fluid around the baby anymore. And so the baby would be born and most likely die.
On this episode of Beyond the Labour Ward, Kate has graciously come to share her story. She had a stillbirth in the second trimester and it was tragic. But what comes out of it is a story of resilience and hope. So let's hear Kate's story. Thanks, Kate, for coming today. I know you're a busy mum, but you've taken some time to be with us today. So please, let's just start. Tell us about your first pregnancy. How was it conceived?
Yeah, sure. Well, my husband Brian and I had been married for a year when we felt like it was time to start trying for a baby, and so that's what we did. And then after about 6 months when that hadn't happened, and I was about 31 by then, we felt like maybe we should go and see someone and get some help.
Yes.
So we saw a fertility specialist and he ran some tests and everything looked fine, and so we kept trying. But after another few months and we still hadn't conceived, we decided to do some interventions. So we started with some IUIs. So we did 3 months of those.
IUI is basically where they take your husband's sperm,
give it a good clean up,
basically, and then put it right up there.
Shoot it in.
So it's, to try and avoid any problems.
At the right time, all those sorts of things. So that's what happened. That was unsuccessful, so then we moved on to IVF. And we did a cycle of IVF and were overjoyed when the first transfer took, which we understood to be really unusual, and so we were super excited. And we were pregnant after about 18 months of trying.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when we first met.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was great to meet you.
It was.
And everything was going great.
Yeah.
Where all the usual tests were going fine.
Yep.
And then what happened?
Yeah, so it had been really easy. Pregnancy, as you say, everything was perfect. I loved being pregnant. I had no morning sickness. I had no cravings. I felt great. We were eagerly anticipating the baby would arrive in May. And then I think it was around we had a scan at around 19 weeks and realised that the fluid was low. I can't remember the technical term.
Oligohydramnios.
There we go, that's what it was. Yeah. And so we thought, oh, that's okay. You thought it was okay. The baby was still swallowing and peeing, and that was a good sign. And so then we did a follow-up scan at about 21 weeks and still low fluid, but the baby still seemed to be okay. Then on Christmas Day, so it's 2015, Christmas Day, I just felt a bit funny, a few cramps, was just not sure what was going on. Boxing Day, the same. December 27th, it was Brian's 30th birthday and we were meant to be flying to Perth. He's from Perth. Right. So we had flights booked for that evening. He's a minister, so he was preaching at church that morning, and I thought, I'm just going to go and see Peter before we get on the plane. Things just feel a little bit off. He had been to every single appointment with me up until that point. He'd come to every single IVF blood draw, every single scan, every single appointment with you. But we thought, I'm sure I'm overreacting and everything will be fine. He had to be at church. We're flying out that night. I'll go see Peter. So we met up at the hospital and you did a scan and you had to tell me that there was no fluid around the baby anymore, and so the baby would be born and most likely die. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I had never imagined that I would hear those words, and everything had been so great up until that point, and Brian wasn't there, and we were told, right, so he was 22 weeks at the time, and so it was like, if he can hang on to 24 weeks, then he's viable, and all those sorts of things. So we had to ring Brian and get him up there, and he had to get up there and be told that on his 30th birthday. And that was where...
I guess the plans to go to Perth got canned.
They did. Yeah.
And I'm always optimistic that the things would hang in there.
You were, yeah,
You know,
yeah. And so we actually went home that morning.
Yeah.
So did a scan, baby was there. We went home and crawled into bed and cried and called people and had to tell them that was the likely scenario. Then I had a massive bleed, and so that was really scary, and so much blood in the bathroom, I can still see it. So we rang you again and met you at the hospital again, and you decided that we would stay there at that point. And so then it was a waiting game.
And of course, Timmy was still alive, so we can't do anything.
That's it.
And when you're bleeding, we just got to support you and just help.
Yeah.
Especially you're on bed rest.
Yeah.
And we were waiting.
Yeah, and the waiting was awful.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, I was so thankful that I could still feel him. We didn't know it was a boy at the time. We hadn't wanted to find out. But I could still feel him moving. So that was a really special time. But the waiting, we would oscillate between, we're going to make it, we're going to get to 24, 25, 26 weeks, he's going to be born, he's going to be okay, with no, he won't, and we're going to have to say goodbye to our baby. And so the waiting was just so unbearable. Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing you, I think I saw at least once, or if not twice a day. I'd come and check, we do the scan, we have a look, we just got to do everything we can just to try and keep our hopes up.
Yeah.
And then I remember one morning I was there, actually was there.
Yeah.
I'd just done a scan.
Yeah.
He was in a breech position.
Yeah.
Because there's no fluid, he couldn't turn around.
Yeah.
And I think you went to the bathroom and then...
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I was, we were in hospital for 3 days, so he was born on the 30th, and I must have been labouring through the night. I remember being in a lot of pain the night before, and we had a wonderful midwife who stayed with me and laboured through the night. And then, you were there, we'd done a scan, the pain had stopped, we thought he was still in position, and then, went to the bathroom and was like, what is that? And the baby was coming, so it was quickly back onto the bed and one push, and he was born. And he was he was born at 22 weeks, and he was tiny but perfect, like just so perfectly formed, just like a perfect baby, but just in miniature. And so he was born, and we put him on my chest, and we could feel his heart beating and try and cut the cord, and we could hold his little hand. He's gripped onto my finger, and he lived, and we were so thankful that he was born alive, because we didn't expect that. So we're so glad that we got to meet him and hold him, and we sung to him and we prayed over him.
I remember all that. I just remember you singing, sorry.
Yeah. And we told him that he had a better home than the one that we could give him, and we have every confidence that he was going to be with Jesus. And so we held him, and he died in our arms. Yeah.
In one sense, it's almost a gift that you had that little bit of life with him.
Oh, such a gift. We feel really thankful for that. Yeah, that we got to meet him and name him. Yeah.
I think Brian read a passage from Revelations.
Yeah. So we're Christians, and we look forward to a day, Revelation says, where there'll be no more crying or mourning or death or pain, for the old order of things has gone and the new has come. And that's really sustained us, the hope that we have in a loving God who really carried us through that and continues to, and that Timothy is safe in heaven, and that one day we'll see him again.
Yeah. I have this romantic image in my mind of like a special wing of heaven.
Right, yeah.
Where all the stillbirths and miscarriages and babies that have had terminations and all that are all waiting right there. and Timmy's there.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a special group of like nursery angels, you know, helping with these ones, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when your time comes, they get the bell rings and they meet you.
I can't wait. I look forward to that day when I will take him in my arms again. Yeah, and spend eternity with him.
Yeah. How long after he was born did you have a funeral?
So after he was born, well, we got a day with him in the hospital. So I was really, again, thankful for that. No one rushed us out, and you gave us time. And so we baptised him, and we took photos of him, and my family came to visit. And so I was really glad they got to meet him, and my sisters got to hold him, and my parents got to hold him, and he was the first grandchild. So that was some really special time. We took him down to the garden, and I don't know, I felt like it was nice to be somewhere that wasn't just the hospital room. So it was really lovely to take him down to the garden and have some sunshine and fresh air, and we took more photos there. And then we had to go. And so we had to say goodbye. And we had to hand him back. So we handed him to a midwife, and she took him. And we had to leave the hospital without him and go home and figure out how to live our lives. And so instead of, you know, buying a pram and setting up the nursery, I had to plan a funeral. I'm really glad we had the funeral. Like, I know that's not for everyone, but we were really glad to have a funeral and to have all our friends and family come and acknowledge his life, and acknowledge the grief and the pain. And so Brian and I spoke, and we sung, and there was a sermon, and we had to carry him out in his tiny, tiny little coffin and go to the crematorium and put him on the thing and close the curtains and say goodbye again. But that was helpful for us to have the funeral and to have that public acknowledgement of his life and death, and to say goodbye. Yeah.
I just find it ironic that as ministers,
Yeah.
you've probably arranged millions of funerals, or
Yeah.
but to have to arrange one for your child that you were,
Yeah.
just the irony of that's taken me.
Yeah.
I think a funeral is a really good thing to do
Yeah.
for the community around you, because everyone around you grieves.
Yeah.
I remember trying to get to that funeral, but somebody was having a baby.
That's okay.
And so I had to not come.
Yeah.
I was
You're
halfway
on your
there and
way.
turned around,
Yeah.
which is a shame.
And I think that's right, because it, like, you are a part of a community, aren't you? And when we fell pregnant, everyone had been on that journey with us and had known how long it had taken us. And I remember when we told people that we were expecting the screams and the hugging and the jumping up and down. So they were there with us, and so it was a chance for them as well to say goodbye. And to support us, to be there for us by just by showing up. They were there, and then by being there for us in the days and the weeks and the months. You've got to stick around. You've got to. I think that was something I was worried about after the funeral. What happens now? Everyone else goes back to their normal lives. I was expecting to go on mat leave and to be joining Mother's Group and taking my baby for walks. The getting back to normal was really hard. So the people who stuck around, we're so grateful for those friends and family who walked with us. Yeah.
Well, that was very traumatic, and kind of set the tone for the next pregnancy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that wasn't forthcoming as easily as we'd hoped.
Yeah. And so I was desperate to get pregnant again. I know people who lose a baby have different experiences of that, whether they want to, but I was keen to get straight back into it. So as soon as my period came back regularly, we were trying again. Again, we had unexplained infertility, I should have said earlier.
Yeah.
So no one actually gave us a diagnosis, so there was still no reason to expect that we couldn't get pregnant naturally, and so we tried to do that, and then that didn't work. So we went back for our frozen embryos. So we had 3 frozen embryos left over from Timothy's cycle. And I wasn't naive. I didn't think it would work straight away again, a second time, but I was hopeful. But yeah, it just was not happening. So those 3 didn't work. We did another fresh cycle. The embryos from that cycle didn't work. We did another fresh cycle. And in between all that, there was more tests, because why weren't we getting pregnant? And then it was like, why are the embryos all failing? So more tests, a couple of miscarriages in there as well. And then it was our 8th embryo transfer after Timothy that we fell pregnant again. Yeah.
And when you've had a tragic loss like Timmy, it does, a bit of a regroup. It does often, you kind of have your emotional defences up during the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get too excited, because it might happen.
It was a strange experience. I actually wasn't as anxious as I thought I would be, which I think was a real gift. I didn't feel fearful. I wasn't freaking out all the time. But yeah, I also was like, I won't really believe it until this baby's here. Yeah.
The pregnancy was basically very uncomplicated from there on.
It was. I often say getting pregnant, super hard. Staying pregnant, super hard. Being pregnant, easy. Again, it was really uncomplicated, really enjoyable, really easy.
And my memories of the birth was it was very uncomplicated and straightforward.
Great. Yeah, and it felt really healing. I really remember the day leading up to that, and so we'd done calm birth and understood a lot about. I just really wanted to work as a team with the baby, and I think we're all towards the end. We were starting to get a bit edgy because we're like, I think we just need to get this baby here. And so we decided to do a stretch and sweep, and I'd planned that day. I was convinced that that was going to work and that the baby was going to come that night. And so to stir up all my good hormones, I planned a really special day, and I had a massage, did some exercise. We went out for dinner with friends, and it was during dinner with friends, and then saw you in the afternoon for the stretch and sweep. It was during dinner with friends. I was like, yeah, this is happening. Starting to feel some initial contractions, and I said that to Brian, this is happening. I think he was a bit more skeptical that it was, and then so I just went to bed and really enjoyed those last special moments when I was pregnant and talking to the baby and encouraging it to come. And then I was like, it's happening. Woke Brian up. He was like, what? It is actually happening. He hadn't packed a bag, one job. I remember driving down the dead of night, and it all went beautifully. And I got in the bath. It wasn't the plan to have a water birth. Like, I was open to it, but it wasn't the plan. But was in the bath, and once I was in there, I was like, yeah, I'm not coming out. So she was born. Our daughter Zoe was born in the bath, and Brian got to pull her out, and that was all really healing and really beautiful. Yeah.
No, I have pretty positive memories of that too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do, and we do as obstetricians and the midwives. Vast majority of our work is those really good moments, but sometimes, rarely you have the moments with Timmy, but to see the moment with Timmy and then to see the next with Zoe, it's just the joy that it brings to us is quite tremendous. So.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And then next pregnancy.
Yeah.
I can't remember I think there might have even been a spontaneous conception in there somewhere.
Yep, but it was another miscarriage, that one.
I know. Yeah. That was a bit heartbreaking.
Yeah. So, we had conceived naturally, and that ended in a miscarriage. That was very early miscarriage. And so then more IVF. Not as much as Zoe. It had been 18 months between losing Timothy and getting pregnant with Zoe, but for Lydia, our third child, our second daughter, I can't even remember, and that seems so strange to me because when you're in the thick of it, you're living month to month, but I don't remember exactly how many embryo transfers that was. It was a few, and 2 or 3, I think, and then we had Lydia. And that birth also wasn't as expected. I'd hoped again for another natural birth, like Zoe's had been so beautiful, no drugs in the bath. Had really wanted the same for Lydia. Had been doing my meditations and leading up to that. But she was posterior, and so had laboured for a long time. By the time you were quietly like, oh, do you think it's time for the epidural? I was like, I think it might be.
No, you were very brave. One of my memories of your labour with Lydia was it was a beautiful midwife looking after you.
Yes.
Orthodox Jew.
Yeah.
I remember Brian reading a psalm.
Yeah. She was reading it in Hebrew.
And she read it in Hebrew.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really affected me in a really positive way.
Yeah, that was Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Yeah.
Because it wasn't easy, this birth. It was not. And anyway, I knew what needed to happen, and I had to kind of coach you through that because you were quite resilient in your...
Oh, that's not a word.
And so you gracefully received the epidural.
Yeah.
And that sort of just helped me then manipulate her. You
tried to turn her manually twice before the epidural, and she would not be turned. And I think that was a moment where we felt so grateful to have had you with us through all those labours and births, because you knew us and we knew you and we trusted you. And so if you knew us and you knew our values, and so for you to say, I think it's time for the epidural, I was like, well, if Peter thinks it's time, then it's time. Yeah. And so we could just really surrender ourselves to your care and know that you'd get us there. Yeah.
Anyway, we did. We got there.
We did, yeah.
A bit of intervention there, but essentially you still had a normal birth.
Yep.
And which was good.
Yeah.
And you're now a family.
Yeah.
And it's really nice that you live locally, and I do see you occasionally.
Yep.
And it's really lovely. Now that you're a family, your girls are growing up. How old are they now?
They are 6 and 4.
How do they relate to their big brother?
Yeah, it's been really a delightful journey, actually. So when Timothy first died, Brian and I wanted to honour his birthday every year, and so we were doing that before Zoe joined us. And the girls were involved in those first few birthdays as well. But then as they got older and they got kind of more demanding, I found that I wanted time on his birthday, just the two of us. So what we do now is that Brian and I'll have some time in the morning, and that's really special time for us. And then we'll do something with the girls in the afternoon. And so we just keep it really simple. We have cake, and they get to blow out the candle, and we sing happy birthday to Timmy, and they get really excited about celebrating his birthday. And what's been a real joy is explaining to them that their big brother is in heaven. And they seem to really get that and have really gotten that from a young age in a way that I wasn't expecting. And so Zoe in particular will talk about Timmy's with Jesus, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. We had a teddy that was Timmy's, and that's Timmy Teddy, and so she'll be like, so cool that I get to play with Timmy's teddy. It was so nice of him to leave that for me. And sometimes she talks about missing him.
There you go.
Which is just, was really caught me off guard the first time she said that. I'm really sad. I really miss Timmy. I was like, yeah, I really miss him too. So it's really beautiful to know that he's a part of their lives and a part of our family. His picture is next to their pictures, and they really delight that he's in our family.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm sure in your life you meet lots of mums and stuff with your church life. But for the viewers at home who've lost a pregnancy and they're just battling to try and fall pregnant again, it's often the case, this desperation to fall pregnant. And I guess, what words of encouragement would you give them? The
grief gets easier. I read a description in a novel once. Grief is like you just keep falling into a hole and you just forget it's there. Eventually you remember the hole is there and eventually you learn to walk around it. Or another one, at first grief is like a cut and it's raw and it's bleeding and it hurts, but eventually it's a scab and then it's a scar. So just keep going. It does get easier to bear. The grief still catches me off guard. Sometimes I don't expect it. Like I saw you one day, I was getting a blood test next door to your office and I saw you and I just like burst into tears at the mere sight of you. So it catches me off guard, or when Zoe says something, or when I look at kids who would have been the same age that Timothy would be now. But it definitely gets easier. And having another baby doesn't replace the baby that you lost by any means. So remember the baby you lost, honour the baby you lost, but know that it can help and it can be really healing to get to bring that new baby home and see that baby grow up. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming today, Kate, and sharing your story with your busy life.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a real joy.
It's a real privilege to get to share. Timothy means honouring God, and we've always prayed that that's what he would do in our lives. So to get to share his story, and hope that it helps other people is a real joy.
Thank you.